The concept of diversity encompasses acceptance and respect. It means understanding that each individual is unique and recognizing our individual differences. These can be along the dimensions of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, age, physical abilities, religious beliefs, political beliefs, or other ideologies. Inclusion is harnessing the contribution diversity brings in and converting it into a competitive advantage. So, to begin with the first session, a discussion on the book Can We Have It All, would like to call on stage author of the book, Ms. Anuranjita Kumar, who will be joined by Ms. Urvi Chaya.
What made you pen down your memories, your experiences?
The real trigger to put pen to paper really came in last year. My son had made, I kind of travel between two different cities. My family is in Gurgaon and I work out of Bombay. So I travel every week between the two cities. And one of those days when I was working out of Mumbai, my son met with a cycle accident. And, it was a terrible accident. So he was really hospitalized in ICU and I rushed back. And I think when you go through those moments, you start debating with yourself about what you're doing in life and whether this is the right thing to do.
You've spoken about the pillars of your success, and it's very, very well articulated. I think the audience will benefit if you can speak a little bit more about the foundation pillars that have helped you succeed in your life.
About conviction. And I think it's really that fuel which keeps you going, because many a time, there were challenges where people will tell me, ye kyun kar rahe ho? You're not supposed to be doing this, or this is not really a great path. And there were times, my husband and I both work. There have been multiple times in our life where we stayed in two different cities with two children. I think his mother and my mother thought that I had gone nuts. I had young children. But it's all about having the conviction that I really want this. And what this is what means all to me. So for me, I think it came more easily that I worked hard for a career. And not that I love my family less, but there must be a way to make it work, which may not be necessarily guided by social norms, but it works for us. So the fourth one is about courage. And I think that's an underlying theme in a lot of things that I'm going to be talking about. Because courage is really what keeps you going. It helps you persist. And, as I think Churchill said, success is not final and failure is not fatal. But it's really the courage which keeps you going. And I was telling you about this whole London, Delhi. I've done that many times in my life. Now I do, Delhi, Bombay. But there were moments, when I'd be going back to London for 2-3 weeks and my son would be holding me back and saying, Mom, don't go. Or, I'm really sad that you're leaving. And those were tough moments. I'm a mother. I have the same emotions as any woman would have. And I'm just referring to mother as a parent because it's me. But this could apply to a man as well. But those are tough moments. And you have to, at that point of time, not be cold and be the mean, wicked mother, but be objective. And, and I think there are those moments where you start to debate, you question, and then you rethink, and you have to persist on your path. And I'm not saying I'm trying to be brave. It's just that what does that can I have it all and all signifies to you? And I think the problem I have sometimes is that in circumstances where somebody is trying to do different things, and this could apply in different scenarios of diversity, and it's out of the social norm, you could be bucketed as different or deviant. And, and by the way, the discrimination or the unconscious bias comes from both men and women. And again, taking a few more examples on unconscious bias, I don't want to steal the thunder from the next session, but let's face it, there are attributes, the leadership standards, which sometimes are defined, in a C-suite, which is more men. And, who is to blame for us but the women, because less women are getting to the C-suite. So when you have leadership standards which say, okay, you've got to be quote unquote pushy, or you got to be driving, or you got to be collaborating, or whatever. But examples of pushy and aggression are associated positively with men, negatively with women. An ambitious man is a good leader, an ambitious woman is a selfish leader. So these are unconscious, but I think there were lots of those moments which will which will question you, which will make you question yourself, and then you have the courage to keep persisting.
When you look back, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Well, yeah, I think now when I look back, in my professional career, I would have taken a few more risks. I would go out of HR, do different things, come back into HR. I think, not that I regret not having done it, but that's what I would do differently.
Okay. Any closing comments, any advice to this young group which is out here?
I think one is, I genuinely believe it, that recognize yourself, take care of yourself, take a bet on yourself, because if you don't, nobody else will.
Thank you, Anu, and all the best for your book.
So our next session is the panel discussion. Please join me in welcoming our eminent panel members. Would like to invite on stage Professor Dr. Ms. Ketna Mehta, Professor Sharit Bhaumik, Mr. Parmesh Shahani, and Ms. Raj Kamal Vig.
So first of all, I would like to ask you, Professor, what are the biases really that people face?
Leaders need to do and see in any potential talent pool is meritocracy. And I think that is the bias that we need to understand, that when you see a person on a wheelchair, or when you see a person with goggles, or when you see a person with a hearing aid, immediately the bias, not only Indians but the world over, is that maybe the understanding, the mental, cerebral levels are also affected. Over the years, we have never seen people with disabilities holding places of significance in different avenues, be it the workplace, the organization, politics, wherever. So, because you don't see them, we are not visible, so as to speak, the bias is that they are not capable, they don't have the right abilities, will they be able to perform, and such things.
To ask the companies, they will say, we are equal opportunity employer. Some of the companies may have taken steps to correct their policies and include the word partner instead of spouse, wife or husband. But what do you think are the challenges? And
I think one issue is that, we've had very conflicting opinions coming in terms of the law. So we have a 2009 Delhi High Court judgment which was really progressive, which decriminalized homosexuality in India. Then we had a reversal in 2013, and then we had a very positive judgment for transgender rights in 2014. So the courts are kind of confused, and in this process, I think certain homophobic companies or companies with homophobic people, because of the confusion, the courts have got a really easy way out. So I think the one challenge in terms of LGBT rights and inclusion is that people are using the legal process as an excuse for them to not do good work on the ground. But having said that, I think we should applaud and praise and honor and put the spotlight on companies which are doing great work. And there are so at a very fundamental level changing our policies. So non-discrimination in anything on paper, and and same rights to everyone irrespective of sexual orientation, gender, etc. A lot of companies stop over there. We realize that we really have to go a step forward and create an inclusive environment. And we do that through multiple things. Through the Culture Lab, which I run, we have constant events. For example, last week we had the biggest transgender performance ever in India at our lab. Some weeks before that, we had a big panel discussion on LGBT in the workplace. We've had I think more than 30 events, film screenings, play performances, panel discussions, book readings, etc. Really creating, making Godrej an active player in LGBT discussions across India and the world.
one of the threads that I'm trying to pick out is, yes, there is a challenge in the society, but what can workplaces do a bit more, be it having conversations on gender, how you make things more non-templated, because everything, as you said, including leadership standards, are all templatized. And how do you get more diverse thinking? It starts from there. I don't want to take off the debate about society, because I don't think this is just a corporate issue. and companies can do what they can do, but I want to just get back to LGBT. This debate has to start in schools. It has to start in colleges. That's where you have to start thinking about providing a safe environment, right? So I don't want to take the whole social responsibility of it, because I think the corporate responsibility and the social responsibility go hand in hand. As far as gender is concerned, given the awareness level and given that we broadly say diversity is a business imperative, it's no more nice to do. There's a lot of focus on gender, be it the government mandating it, be it the corporates trying to get more women in leadership play. But I think we've got to be careful. We can't go into an affirmative or a positive discrimination mode there. We need to finally count on merit. So yes, it requires a bit of push and handling, but I think hopefully enough, I would say, energy is given to the momentum that it runs on its own. So I think be it I look at policy, be it maternity, be it, infrastructure issues for women, I think a lot of that is being addressed. Has the needle moved? I think yes. More women in colleges, more women in workforce, less women at leadership levels. But then Rome is not built in a day, so it's going to take time to correct the C-suite bias as well. Data and the research tells you that the more diverse workforce is a more, is a more profitable business, and it's a much more productive company if we are able to operate with it.
Let me just take a contrarian position. Everybody's talked about this being an agenda that we all need to invest in. However, we also know that net job creation is at risk. People are not ready. Companies are not adding jobs. Second thing is, if you look at the matrices as well, we are expecting more out of people. In such a scenario, how do you make investments in an issue like this? Because even though you may not mandate it, it needs investment. It needs nurturing.
There is the biggest stumbling block for a person with disability to get out of home, to get into a school, to get enough, skilled so that can come into the portals of an organization and then flourish, have the potential truly utilized, is infrastructural barriers. When we say accessibility, it is not only wheelchair access in terms of ramps and railings and elevators, also for other people with disabilities. Right from the school, when you have children mingling with others, whether it's a girl child or a person with disability or with a different sexual orientation, all these things get ingrained. And if there is adequate training, if there is adequate sensitization about what are the needs, requirements, how do you deal with a person like...
I think as far as, we talk in terms of at least this issue of meritocracy, it's very important. And I think in the corporate world it's important. But the point is that whether we can spread the net wide enough to get the right people who are meritorious. Because many times they slip out because of various reasons.
Going back to the debate around compliance and quota, I'm not a great propagator of that, because as a woman it makes me feel underprivileged, and I believe that I'm not. I would say a quota system assumes that you're inducting people into a certain system, right? And people have to be given protection. Diversity and inclusion is about changing that social system. So I would rather persist on changing the social system.
The point is, I think the quota system is there not to ensure that people who are not meritorious should get in to fill the quota. The quota comes up at a time when people are meritorious and yet there's a bias against it. I think you try to even out that way. It's not something like trying to use it as a crutch or something, but when there is a bias in society, then how does one overcome it? That's it.
So on that note, we'll open the floor for questions. Any questions?
Nokia and Ericsson, which are very big organizations in India, they are planning to increase the target for women employee in India. So when they, being outside organizations, have realized that India is a very big pool of women talent, what is the take of Indian organizations on this? Being from an MNC, we have many more policies and procedures that we are bound by, which come from, be it New York or London, wherever we might have worked. I think Indian companies are more empowered to do this real time.
The intent of most organizations, including Indian organizations, is towards making the organizations more diverse and inclusive. But on the subject of quota, because I didn't present my views, I would also second the thought. The idea is to have a more inclusive culture, workplace, in context of gender neutral workplace, and have the conversation with regards to culture and sensitization, and have policies and processes where you encourage more and more segments of population both getting hired and promoted.
So we have talked about working towards a more inclusive workplace. We have talked about hiring people from diverse backgrounds with diverse sexualities and so on and so forth. How about nurturing this talent? Once you hire someone for, say, LGBT community, and you know the people working at, as you pointed out, at the C-suite positions, you know, they must be set in their ways with, and they must have, and most of them have or are ascribed to a different set of values. So how do we sensitize them towards this issue and, you know, really make an inclusive workplace?
I think first you have to take away assumptions that people at higher levels are whatever. Some might be, some might not be. More often than not, people at higher positions are older men, so they might be more biased than others. But often, you know, if you make people conscious of their biases, then they can change. You, as a company, you have to be very committed to it. You have to work with people. You have to work with senior leaders. You have to work with people across the group in saying that this is what you value, this is what you don't. You often have to model what good behavior and what bad behavior is. I think you have to create a very safe environment for people to be themselves, and which means absolutely no space for bullying or harassment, etc. If an incident like that comes, you have to either tell that person this behavior is not acceptable. If the person continues it, you have to, you know, let that person go.
I think it's also important for us to not only look at, you know, people up there, but also at ourselves. You know, how many of us here have made use of the conversations like this, or have had conversations like this, and also acknowledge our own biases?
Managing family is equally stressful. So, you know, I would take that with a bit of pinch of salt, because, I mean, in life, if you have to grow, there are joys and there are stresses. But I'm not going to take away everything from there, because it's a proven research, so let's leave the research findings the way they are. There are times where women back off from taking higher responsibility because higher stress signifies higher amount of time commitment, which sometimes they're not able to give because of, you know, other personal family reasons, and they may not have the support system at home. There are times where actually I've had conversations with upcoming senior women where they do not want to get promoted or get paid more, because that would mean getting paid more than their husband.
It starts happening at the junior management levels, 1 to 2 years of entering the job, and that's also not because of life stage events, but in anticipation of life stage events.
I just want to know the panel's opinion that, do you think that if in an organization they have a reservation for women, and when you have a woman in that organization, do they have a voice, and are they taken seriously? Because there might be an opinion that, you know, the woman is here in the organization because of the reservation.
I think, you know, when you get into decision-making roles, or when you are in a leadership role, I will continue to emphasize that merit is extremely important. If people see you there, I mean, as he said, you can have targets, and I think that helps the process, or that helps the facility to an extent. But I would like to believe that at least women on the stage are there because they deserve to be there, not because that we were targeted to be one of the women in the leadership.
If women think that they are there, and somebody presents them with a tiara and give their voice, you know, perhaps, you know, all of us, men or women, don't deserve to be there in that leadership position. So we've got to create our own voice.
So I know Godrej is doing a lot of work on the LGBT space, and a lot of we keep getting a lot of mailers around what Innovation Lab is also Culture Lab. But internally, do you see the needle moving significantly? Do you see that youngsters are more open to coming out of the closet and disclosing their orientation?
The first answer is yes, completely. You can see the needle shifting completely, and it's really exciting to observe this needle shifting. I think you can change, and then when has made that happen, but for that you need to stand up and you need to, in a sense, be an exemplar or whatever. That's number one. And when you put your organizational weight behind it, you're not just addressing LGBT students or LGBT talent. I mean, if ICICI or Citibank or Godrej or whatever says you're LGBT friendly, you're in a sense addressing the whole youth population, because you might find it straight, maybe you won't, but even straight young people don't want to work for a company that discriminates.
So on that note, thank you panelists for a wonderful conversation. I think the conversation itself proved that there's no one single story to make the workplace more inclusive, and let's keep the conversations going.